As Beth Crook would say, it's party time. As she's already said in the comment section. Thank you so much for joining us. We are super excited. And welcome officially to the very first video edition of the Canvascasters. Lord help us. We are live on all platforms right now to not only do a test run of the Canvascasters with actually faces on the screen, but also to discuss the release of a very special project Marcus and I have been involved with for almost a year and a half. So we're just really here to take your questions and interact with fellow Canvas LMS users. And tonight we get to go behind the book and discuss the making of Canvas LMS for Dummies, which is on sale wherever books are sold. And we're super excited for you to join us. Kat Flippin is here. Bath and bedtime for the girls.
Man, talk about making the sacrifice
right
for the Canvas fam. She basically was like, all right, kids, you're on your own. Bath time. But we're going with an abbreviated bedtime story. Now you're off to bed. Mama's got work to do.
Right. Yeah. Hashtag mommy life. I love it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As you come in, Ray, woohoo. We feel the exact same way about today. It's been a really long time coming. If you have questions while you're joining us today, please ask those. Whatever platform you may be on, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you're joining us from, please absolutely post a comment to YouTube's usually the easiest place because there's so much engagement on that platform. So if you're on YouTube, make sure you comment or leave a sectional comment there down below. We'll be more than happy to chat about those. But essentially, Marcus and I, a long time ago, started this thing called the Canvascasters. And before that, we were district leaders, integrationists, the tech guys, the Canvas nerds down the hall, so to speak, as you've seen on the copy of the book. And we're really just here to tell our story and to talk to you and answer your questions about the book tonight. So feel free, as always, to do that as you're joining us today. But a little background. So I've spent a little over 12 years in education. I was an educator and teacher at my old high school. Yes, I went back to the high school I graduated from and taught audio-video production for 8 years. Spent some time as a district technology integrationist in a neighboring district, and then the last 2 years before I actually joined Instructure and joined the company that I've always loved, I was running a career in tech education innovation program with my educators as a CT innovation coach at Central 9 Career Center, just south of Indianapolis in Greenwood, here in Indiana, and that's where I'm from. So super excited to get to share this journey with you, and again, answer your questions today. Marcus, brief introduction by you, and then we'll kind of dive right into how this crazy thing started.
Absolutely. First of all, Jim Wolf coming in, just immediately like, listen, always. I got dinner on the stove. Y'all just need to cut to the chase. We can always depend on Jim to heckle virtually.
Absolutely. And I don't know about Philip here, but this may be fake news. I don't know if Jeff Bezos is hand-delivering any of our copies on the Canvas for Dummies front.
Hey, he's not doing it in the Midwest because we're about a foot deep in the snow right about now. So
absolutely,
definitely not doing it here. So, Eddie and I have been doing the whole podcast thing, and we just are so grateful to even get a chance to do that and have that be part of our lives. We had no intention, or really it was pie in the sky sort of talk. As far as like how many episodes can we get before we either quit because nobody cares or we get a cease and desist. And neither of those things happened. And it's been really great. And it sort of brought a lot of excitement to our lives personally and professionally. As far as myself and, why I'm here or how I got here, 20 years in education as an English teacher. High school, middle school, I taught every grade except juniors. Not sure how I dodged junior year, but had all grade levels from 6 to 12. I kind of got into the tech game first through becoming a media specialist. I took the test. I became a media specialist / lots of you guys know about the / tech coach. And so I was kind of doing those two roles, and that really was the foot in the door to let me really capitalize on my passion for technology, which I kind of didn't know that I had until I started really getting into using Canvas as a classroom teacher. And when I discovered all the things I could do and how my students were responding to that, that's when I really got into the tech side of things. And then sort of it all just kind of snowballed from there. And then I ended up meeting Eddie, and we collaborate on all sorts of little projects here in Indiana over the years. And then kind of now here we are, live on the internet. So
no one should ever give us the keys to anything, because we're probably going to do something that we shouldn't, which is live stream a Q&A about a book that we've written. No, it's so interesting. Like, Marcus and I have known each other for a long time. And, a lot of the stories that we've been able to be a part of, or some of the trainings and professional developments we've been a part of, have always culminated around, this idea that Marcus has been around in education far longer than I have. No jokes about age. But I would occasionally, have a question or something would come up as we're integrating Canvas, and he would have an answer, or he would say, well, back in the day, back when I used to have to, shovel 12 inches of snow out of my driveway before I walked 15 miles to the school, we used to do it this way. And I'd be like, well, no, now there's a thing. And he'd be like, what? And we'd kind of talk about it, and we realized that we had this just really fun banter back and forth about something that we loved, which was Canvas LMS at the time, right? So we got together, we started a podcast, the thing launches and kind of snowballs. Again, we were really sure there was a cease and desist letter somewhere at some point, but they were very supportive of that project. And then we're really getting ready to start season 2, and whatever the future may hold for Marcus and I when it comes to, the pandemic, it kind of hitting pretty hard, and we get a phone call from Wiley Publishing, the people that actually make the Dummies series, and they ask us, is this something we would be interested in? Would we write? They were interested in maybe doing a Canvas for Dummies book, because the executive producer, publisher was had some kids in school and they were using Canvas, and he thought, we don't have a Canvas for Dummies book, we should. And then who would write it? And then apparently these two yahoos
easy
come across the search engine somewhere for the Canvascasters, and they were like, we wonder if you would be interested in writing this book. And honestly, we thought this was fake. We were Googling and trying to figure out, like, who is this person? What was Marcus said? Like, was there a Nigerian prince somewhere that was trying to get our checking account numbers?
We were
at some
getting
point?
catfished for sure.
which wasn't the case, right? It was all real life. And we've said it multiple times. I've said it a few times on the podcast very early on that writing things isn't necessarily my forte. We've been asked to do some blogs and some other things, and I'm like, no, big XO for me. Not super interested in any of that. But writing a book was always something that would have been fun, as long as I could do it with somebody that was way smarter than I was when it came to that kind of thing. So partnering with him has just been great, because I knew I wasn't worried about sounding like a dummy. He'd make me sound super smart. I could do some of the things which I loved. A lot of the screencasting, a lot of the instruction, clickety-click stuff is coming from me. Marcus was doing more of the pedagogical story time, why and how you should use it, which was just absolutely fantastic. So it really kind of worked in both of our favors that we would be able to do this. And I think for me, Marcus, starting out, I was super nervous, right? Like, I didn't know where to start, but I think having you helped me just feel a little bit more comfortable. I don't know how you felt when we started.
Yeah, we've talked about this between the two of us, and certainly with our families, that like writing a book was probably not something that either of us ever expected to be able to do or have the opportunity to do. And when that occurred and we actually got into starting the process, I think that's when it hit both of us. We're like, oh, this is going to be hard work. This isn't just fun and games, puppy dogs and ice cream. This is This is real work. And we have friends who are published authors, and we're super jealous of that. And you know, when we had the opportunity, we just wanted to be able to meet the needs of as many users as we possibly could. And speaking to the question in the chat there, how deep is the book? Anyone familiar with Canvas, or excuse me, with the Dummies brand? You know, there is a method to the madness of the Dummies brand, and it's tried and true. I mean, there are very few brands out there that are as strong as the Dummies brand in terms of providing folks with the sort of a desk reference, a quick hit. I need to know this. I go into the book. I can easily find that, and then I can go and do that thing or learn more about that thing. And so we knew that, and we were excited about that element because we felt like we could build engaging content and hopefully have our voices come through in between that stuff. You know, so when you're getting click by click, step by step on some of the basics of Canvas in the book, in between that, it's all sandwiched within, you know, sort of our educational experience and the pedagogy and the best practices of online learning and blended learning. And we just all put it kind of like the podcast, all through the lens of Canvas. And so, and we, you know, we threw some panda talk in there, and we're trying to get crazy. But you know, it's an exciting thing, and I can't really believe that anybody's here talking in the chat and anybody's at all interested. But I just feel very, very #blessed, I guess.
Well, some of us aren't just hanging out in the chat. Some of us are actually physically in the car at a red light. Greg, we don't ever recommend listening to us while you drive, let alone signing into a chat. But it sounds like he's all good. He is at the computer now. And as Kat says, the South needs you. Your safety is paramount, which we absolutely agree with. Greg Bagby, one of our absolute great friends out there. Thank you for joining us, both of you. But glad to see that you're now at a computer and no longer taking your life into your own hands at red lights, chatting on the Canvas for Dummies Q&A. We really appreciate that.
Greg,
here's a question from our good friend Beth. We're going to dive into these as we're chatting about the book. Now that the podcast is officially a podcast of Canvas and the book writing is complete, what exactly will you do with your spare time? That is further from the truth.
Man, I tell you, it's like Beth has been talking to our wives.
Yeah. So here's the deal. When we were starting the book process, I was kind of deep into starting a new job, right, with Canvas and working for Instructure full time. Marcus was still working for a school district, so like that was a huge conversation. Like, I always start writing a book, and now I'm thinking about this new job and like what in the world happens next, and there's just a lot of work to be done. But as most of you that know Marcus and I and that have been in constant communication with us, you all know that we don't stop. Marcus has a saying like "can't stop, won't stop," or there's usually something he's always putting out on Twitter where he's the hardest worker in the world because that's what he does. And
always say yes.
Always say yes. We don't say no to a whole lot of stuff, but we're up to something. I like to use that for a lot of stuff. We are consistently up to something. I don't know if we'll ever have spare time. I can sleep when I'm dead. And honestly, a lot of what we've been trying to do with making the podcast official and getting this book out there has really been for you guys, right? Like, we don't... Yeah, writing a book is cool, and having your name on the spine of a book is like super cool. I think I can attest to that. Like, having the name right there is super cool. But so there is something intrinsical about that as an adult that I'm like, yeah, my name's on a book. That's pretty neat. But honestly, like, Marcus and I started the podcast so that we could connect people with other people, and that we knew that our stories weren't unique, that there were other folks out there globally that were dealing with the same problems and the same issues. And the podcast was a way to connect folks to that, because we felt like we could provide voice and amplify some of those stories. This book is a testament to that. We wanted to make sure that we had stories in here from users, and to talk about the people that we've met along the way that have told us all of the great things we're doing. Because although we love Canvas and we used Canvas religiously, and I made sure that I was promoting Canvas in everything I did as an educator, nothing was more gratifying than talking to you folks in the community and talking to you guys on Twitter about how you were also having those same experiences. And I think this is kind of I don't want to say, like I always say, like, this is a love letter to Canvas users, right? Like, this is something that will give you a step-by-step clickety-click for those that need it, but it's also filled with stories about how you are really making a difference in students' lives, and ways that you can make a difference by those stories to let other users know. We kind of mentioned this before, but we got a message here from Carrie Nielsen. What level of Canvas knowledge should a reader have before diving into the book? Well, as we know, Dummies books are super simple, right, Marcus?
Well, I mean, if we're writing it, you got to consider the sources. But yeah, I mean, the whole premise of the Dummies series and how they've sort of approached learning is like focused and laser focused, which is one of our favorite terms, laser focused on, new users to whatever it happens to be. So, I mean, if you go into Amazon and you look at all of the 4 Dummies books, you know that. And some of you guys out there probably have a dozen of these books on the shelf. For different things that you've wanted to learn about. Our goal, our hope, Carrie, is that if you are brand new to Canvas, or maybe your district is you've heard murmurs, maybe there's talk in the background of maybe going to Canvas in the future, or you're new to it, or maybe you've even had it for a year or so. Our goal was ultimately to meet the needs of the new users and give a lot of the basic, fundamental, foundational skills. But we also tried, and we hope, honestly, that's my hope, Eddie, and I know it's yours too. We really hope that we were able to help those users, but then also our gurus, you guys that are, here, tuning in, and all of our friends out there in Canvas famland. These are gurus, these are experts, these are the people that we learn from. We want you guys to read the book and, again, hear our voice, be able to, laugh, hopefully here and there, hear hopefully some good stories that make you think about what we do as educators, help you see the immense value that you have in your role. And so we hope that it hits for a lot of different levels of users in the end. But obviously on the surface, the design of the Canvas for Dummies book is certainly going to serve the needs of new users right out of the gate.
Yeah, and honestly, this book was built specifically around every level of user. As Marcus mentioned, we know that there are districts that might be moving to Canvas in the fall, or districts that might be thinking about Canvas as they move forward. This book was to help, right? And we also know that there are tons of other resources out there for you. So, and again, right up front in the book, we say a lot of the stuff that we're going to cover can be found in the Canvas community. I know a lot of the folks that are on the live stream right now that we recognize these names are super users in the Canvas community, and they have guides put together on every single thing that you need to do to make sure you are successful in Canvas. We feel like this is a bit of a supplement, right, to that, as well as being able to dive into more stories and why you might do those specific things. But you'll find a lot of links to the things that we're doing or talking about in the book to the Canvas community, because those guides are so good, and they're vetted by the company and have been there for a really, really long time. It is something that we believe is kind of a supplement resource for you as you move forward. Marcus, some of the questions that we've gotten beforehand that we might want to dive into while folks are still collaborating online, and love the engagement. Keep them coming. We're we're here, right, to answer those. That's why we're doing this. How in the world was the sausage made, right? How did this process work? I think I'll let you tackle that one. So.
Oh, man. So, I think I'll speak for myself in terms of like my expectation versus what happened. I think in my minds, we sort of went through the process of like agreeing to do the thing and signing documents and so forth. And then it was sort of, then we got a coach. We got a sort of, I think, a dummies coach, and she sort of helped us through giving us an idea of sort of like tone and voice and words to use and not use. Like, you're going, don't say we, say you, that kind of stuff.
Which is what every English teacher ever told me to never do on a paper.
Right, because in your English class, it's intended to be more formal, and the brand, the focus here is for it to be a little bit less formal, and to be more accessible and easy to read, and so that was the goal. So we got coached up a little bit, and then we got to the point where Eddie and I had to sit down and like hunker down in a coffee shop multiple weeks, consecutive weeks. And really hammer out the table of contents, right? What are we going to include? And that's when I immediately realized this was not a joke anymore. Because when we were working on just the table of contents, just what's going to be in this book, and when we looked at the grand scope of what Canvas does and what it can do and the levels, right? There's the foundational skills, and then there's like next level, and then there's really getting into some guru sort of Jedi level stuff, and we frankly the book would be 18,000 pages long if we confronted all of that, and that's truly not what the brand is ultimately focused on. We had to really sort of focus in and focus on the things that we thought were most vital for somebody like Carrie, who's like, we're getting Canvas in the fall. I'm trying to get myself ready. I want to be ready to rock, and I need all the resources. And so, once we did that, the process sort of began. That was the easy part, and I was already scared. When we got into actually writing, that's when I think Eddie and I both sort of realized that we were, and mind you, Eddie and I work together a lot. We have a very good working relationship. We complement each other. Eddie said that earlier. I know we both feel very lucky to have that complementary sort of partnership. It was pushed when we had to collaborate on writing because the process of it was something that neither of us had ever done. Yeah. And I mean, it was almost like we were having to walk with like a shared body or something. Like we were like joined at the hip, and we had to really get on the same page. And I think that pushed us to at least for me, I wanted to do my absolute best because I didn't want to let him down, and have him be like, dude, come on, man, what is this garbage? So I think, we've said it before, like iron sharpens iron. And when you've got competitive folks that you really feed off of when you collaborate, I just think it makes for better everything. Makes better partnerships, better final products. And I think Eddie and I both, we've lived that in school, in our schools, and in our work lives up to this point.
Yeah, shout out to the Rivette Coffee Bar and Roastery there in Westfield, Indiana, where we spent most of our time writing this thing together. Kind of a central location for both of us in different parts of Indiana. It could be Rivet, but they never said their name. I'm going to say Rivet.
I think it's Rivet.
Rivette. Wherever you're from, we'll just take that pronunciation. So, but yeah, we spent a few weeks there writing this thing and trying to hash it out. And Marcus is right. Like, nothing will test a working relationship quicker than finding a book to write, 298 pages, Hold on, let me update. It changes every time I look at it because I can't believe it's still alive. 286 total pages, including the all about the author section. But yeah, it was a great thing, right? I think while Marcus was heavily focused on making sure that the words flowed really well, I was just trying to make sure that it made sense technically. And I don't think any of this could have been done without the fabulous Kona Jones, who is either maybe lurking somewhere on the chat. Kona Jones, our technical editor that we brought in on this project, was so helpful in making sure that Eddie didn't sound like a dummy and Marcus didn't sound like a dummy from a technical side of things, because although we had an editor and we had folks that were kind of keeping us on track, once we were done, once we had someone else we had to rely on and somebody else that was relying on us, the great queen of Canvas, Kona Jones, and she really spent a lot of time reading a lot of things that we were writing, and said, now just to make sure, as an administrator, this may not be on, or this might be something that's a little confusing to users. Such a great person to be able to collaborate with and really kind of keep us on track to make sure that it's done. We have another question here. I feel like this was a super quick turnaround. How long did it take you all to write it from start to finish? I would say probably a year and 8 months, 9 months, depending. Lots of conversations before then, but it was a long time, right?
What's crazy
from start to finish, from maybe the first conversation to this actually physically in my hands, right?
Right. Yeah. What's wild about that though, and that's our friend Carrie right there. Yeah. What's crazy, Carrie, is that the initial timeline was significantly shorter than what actually happens. Right. There was a timeline.
Right.
Here's how the sausage. Here's behind the book. There was a moment where Wiley said to us, "We want this out by Christmas. We want this out for Christmas shopping season."
Well, before Christmas, it was if you can get it done by fall start. 2021. August, October. They said October. If we can get to October launch, that would be great. And then we didn't make that, obviously. And they said, well, Christmas would be fantastic.
And we were like, that's brilliant. Santa brings a book. Yeah. we didn't hit that deadline either.
Donnie Piercy.
I had a feeling Donnie was going to show up.
He's here at some point. As you know, Donnie, our good friend, someone that we've known through EdTech Team, someone that we've collaborated with on some other projects. Donnie Piercy has a podcast as well. Marcus, the name escapes me. Maybe he can put the name in the chat for other folks to be able to listen to.
Are you being funny? You really don't remember?
I would like you to say it.
The Partial Credit Podcast?
The Partial Credit Podcast. In fact, they're three dudes that just love to podcast, and they have a really fantastic show. Make sure you check them out. But Donnie put on Twitter the other day, because Donnie's a big Google user. He loves Google Classroom, and we were a part of that world at one point. And he just said, I just wish there was a View as Student button. And I kind of poked the bear with Donnie recently and said, I know where you can find a View as Student button in Canvas. So he asked Marcus to put the knowledge to the test. Donnie, there's a little button on almost anything in Canvas, and it's right up there at the top, super easy to find, that says View as Student.
Dare I say intuitive?
Yeah, it almost may even say Student View.
Right, yeah. I mean,
eliminating the need for the third word for some reason.
Why use more words when less words more better?
That's right. So we had some other questions that came in, obviously, beforehand. Again, if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. That's what we're doing this for. Maybe be on for another 10 or 15 minutes. But really, one of the questions that came up was, what was our goal, right? What was the goal of this book specifically? I told you a little bit about like why and the vision and what really kind of passionate people like Marcus and I wanted to do the project. But what were the main goals to writing this? So, for me, it was, again, just to be something that people tangibly could go look at. And I've told this story a couple of times, and I'm going to tell it again for those that are new. there in my initial post when we kind of announced or launched the book to say, hey, this thing is happening, we're co-authors, it's a pretty special thing that'll be coming. I tell this story of a user that while I was implementing Canvas at my Career and Tech Education Center at C9, one of the educators, one of the teachers there, consistently wanted a physical copy of some of the things that I was doing. And as a tech coach, as someone who considers themselves an innovator, I have a badge that says I'm a Google innovator. I don't understand why you just wouldn't look it up on Google or just read the screen and then follow along, because I'm a digital guy. So I really went home kind of just racking my brain about what a physical copy might look like. And what that looks like. So at that time, I just printed out Canvas guides from the community, and I stuffed them in a 3-hole punch binder. I put his name on the front and said, this is, educator's memorial binder, and I put it up at the front of the classroom, and other people could check the binder out if they needed it. But as I was thinking about some of these educators that are kind of growing up in this new digital age and has been teaching forever, and that are used to having a quote-unquote manual, right, to do things, especially career and tech ed teachers, I was like, I have to meet them where they're at, right? So that's where this 3-hole bunch binder came in. And after a few weeks, and he was using it, it helped tremendously. And he goes, Eddie, I just wish there was a Canvas for Dummies book. So now I get to take this book back to that school, and I get to hand it to him and say, you know what, you inspired me to basically serve you in a manual form that I can hand you a physical copy of something that you can now use. And he may only teach for another year, super close to retirement. So, but honestly, there are folks out there. For me, my goal was to hand folks a physical manual that they could have in tandem with the Canvas community guides.
Yep. There, are you seeing the chat?
It's blowing up. Yeah, I love all these folks.
Please let everybody see what Philip said. I mean, the holiday season is upon us.
Yeah, what do you want to talk across the table from, Phil? You want to talk Canvas? That's all we got. I
mean, Phil, to be real honest with you, I treated my wife and my daughter to a fine Valentine's Day dinner at the White Castle a couple of years ago. Really nice, classy. They really did it up nice. So for anybody who wants to really impress your loved ones, I highly recommend that. I want to cut. I'm looking in the chat. Kat had a question there. Yeah. So, Kat, one challenge to writing technically oriented literature in education is to prevent the repetitive point and click guidance. How did you all approach this book to be more than point and click? Outstanding question.
We pushed really hard because I think initially these Wiley books are very point and click, and they have a structure, right, that says, we need step-by-steps, we need screenshots, we need all of these things. If you were to read Windows 11 for Dummies, right, it's going to be very clickety-click oriented. When we started to give them our thoughts and ideas in kind of the first chapter draft renderings, there was no clickety-click. So I think they knew, we've got two guys that want to pontificate on pedagogy and not really give you clickety-click. So I think there was just a really nice balance that was struck.
Yeah, and I think that's what played to. I think helped us both. Eddie has the process-oriented brain that I don't. So he was able to think, strategically about the structure of a chapter, and then utilize sort of how Dummies books are sort of built anyway. And then it got to a point where it was like we were able to just sort of enhance in between those things. And that's where I felt like we really hit our stride, is when we got that comfort level where the structure was in place and we had the click by click for the things we wanted to focus on. And then we were able to go in and really dig into, why is it important that you do it this way? Why is design of a homepage important? And I think that's when we got really, really stoked about what it was going to end up being. Hopefully, was when we started to see that there was sort of a bounce, like when you used to see the little ball bounce along with the words when you're reading on a screen. It felt like that. It was like there was this balancing act between the click by click and then the real thought and the why of things. And I think that's what we're most proud of is, you can get click by click a lot of places, and you're going to get that here. But you're also going to get some unique perspectives, some stories like we try to do on the podcast. And we hope that's a way to sort of, keep you as a reader really hooked in and engaged. You're never click by click for long before you get a transition into thinking deeply about what we do as educators. And then you get to bounce back to learn a new skill. And then you bounce back into thinking about the why and why it's important and why it helps learners. And so that whole process was really exciting for me. But because the structure was there, I think that helped us. It was like bumpers at the bowling alley. I never felt like I was going to go into the gutter. I felt like we had enough structure in place, and Eddie laid groundwork, and he had the process, and we were able to always make sure that ball was going to, stay in the lane.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if there was anything more fun than being able to tell stories as well as do the step-by-step click stuff. Because I think you can get those in two different places, right? We have the podcast, which we tell a ton of stories, but we're not really saying like, oh, this really cool product announcement or this really cool product thing that you would go into settings and then you would click this, and that would be very hard to follow on a podcast, by the way.
Right, no visual.
And then you have the Canvas community that has guides that are clickety-click, right, that give you both, but you have these two different places. Like, we tried really hard to take those stories and integrate them into this book that made sense, and I don't think if that's the most satisfying thing that we could have done, which is, there are ways like creating an announcement or using the media recorder or diving into the rich content editor, using the accessibility checker. These are in the book, right? But most of it is our stories and the words. No digsit here. No one take any screenshots of that, right? Don't be photocopying. But yeah, for sure. Like, we talk about how the pandemic was super impactful. We talk about flexibility of educators. We do those types of things, and being able to marry those two together was super important. Again, if you have a question, please ask those in the chat. We're kind of diving through some pre-questions that have been coming in. What are our favorite memories? That's something that came in earlier on our feeds into the DMs. Eddie and Marcus, what are your favorite memories of the book? Marcus, do you want to go first?
Oh, man. There's a few. I will say that part of what our process entailed was working within Microsoft Word. And as two guys who have sort of been very googly, that was a big ask for us. And folks that are here watching and listening, you guys are like, "Are you kidding me? You can't handle Microsoft Word?" No, frankly, no. It was actually there was a significant learning curve for us both when it was we're working on the same thing independently, and the sharing was maybe a little bit different than what we were accustomed to with a Google Doc, and then we had all of the edits in the margin. I remember looking at these chapters where it was like Eddie put things, Marcus put things, every edit and basically every keystroke was a different color. And there was highlights and arrows, and I just remember there were moments where I was like, there's gonna be a habit. There's gonna be a vice that's gonna be picked up by Marcus if I can't deal with this whole thing. So the transition and working within that type of collaborative tool was challenging for us as a couple of, I think we're techie enough. So I'll never forget just sort of looking at those documents in draft and thinking, how is this going to end up being on a page and looking like a book? Because it looked like somebody threw the Crayola box on, and it was just everything was everywhere. Yeah, see, we should have read that. We should have read that book, right? We could have really benefited. But yeah, we definitely could have used that book. So I'll never forget that feeling, because it really knocked my ego down significantly. You know, as someone who claimed to be techie, and then I was really like, you know, very much fundamentally struggling in those early stages. The other one for me is just that sort of the realization that we weren't being catfished, which we talked about a little bit before. That Stephen really was an actual human being, you know, and that he had done his due diligence. He had done his internet sleuthing, and for some reason he thought, man, these guys might have something to say about this. But the one thing I will always remember about that conversation, Eddie, is the Steve's children using Canvas, and that was really what sort of got him jazzed about the book. Was he was like, I want you guys to do this book because I see my kids using this, and I wonder, you know, if this could be something that could help, you know, teachers out there that you know, need a little extra support, need a little more reason to buy in, need reason to get more excited about this part of their work. And that kind of got to me, because I kind of felt like there was something I needed to do within the book to make sure that if you read the book, you come out of it a better user of the platform, but you come out overall better as an educator in some way, something you can take away.
Yeah. So for those for those just joining, for those just joining, we have a special guest that's on the. We should have actually invited him on to be kind of a guest speaker. We don't know what we're doing ever, but Marcus and I have said for a very long time that we kind of live a pretty dumb life, right? Like we have just been blessed with getting lucky or being in the right place at the right time. But none of this happens without Steve Hayes, who is our executive producer. The byline officially is executive editor Stephen Hayes, who reached out to Marcus and I and said, I would like you to write the Canvas for Dummies book. So this is the guy that actually made all of it happen. And he knows our struggles because we kept saying, we don't like this word stuff. I don't know who decided to do the word, but we're not happy with it. So he was like, write in the Google Doc, put it in Word, apply the template, you'll be okay. And he would like everyone here to know that he is actually a Nigerian prince. So
right, so
that part might be true. We had a question come in the chat about how we might update this book, right? How often do you see yourselves needing to update this book? As most of you know that live in the Canvas ecosystem, Canvas is not on a regular, what we would consider release or update schedule. So we don't typically have Canvas 11.0 and here are all of the updates. Here's 1,000 updates that are going to change your life as an educator. What they like to do is to take feedback from their users, and they're very responsive, right? As it says here into the question in quotes. As soon as they get an idea and a solutions engineer can spend time and resources on it, it happens, right? They fix it. Those product engineers are consistently creating new and engaging experiences. And we know that with most Dummies books, there is a first edition and a second edition and a third edition. I haven't gotten over writing the first edition yet, so I don't know if I'm ready to physically commit to a second. Steve may still be with us. I don't know, Steve. I've got a little PTSD on doing this thing, but it'll just we'll see how it plays out. Most of the stuff that we tried to cover in the book kept it at that base level fundamental product that is already there and kind of the core of what Canvas is, knowing that wouldn't be. Let's just be honest. There are no new quizzes, old quizzes, Jones and the Sharks happening in this book. We just cover quizzes in general. So we'll be excited to see what the what the new edition might look like, or how we update it. Steve says typically recovery time is about 4 months. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's good to know, Steve. That helps me because, I've joked about this. I haven't been on my bike since I competed in September, and every time I look at my bike over there in the third car garage, I'm like, nope, I am not interested. And so yeah, it's good to know that there is a sort of a acceptable lag time. But it's a good point. It's a good question from Kat, and I think it's not a problem. It's a good thing. I love, that's one of the things that we love about Canvas is that there are a number of people that are going through and saying, how can we continually make this thing better for all users, and user students, and user teachers and professors and teaching assistants and classroom aides and everybody involved. And that being part of sort of the DNA of the company, I think is really important. Does that mean that the book will, at some point, yes, there will be things that will be different. But as Eddie said, we really tried to hone in on some of those keystone elements that have been, very much, a dependable part. And certainly there will be things that will change, but we're excited about where it is now and where it's headed. And, I just envision folks just really, getting the Post-it notes and those cute little sticky flags and highlighting and circling, because people love doing that. Some people do. I don't know if I don't know if I do, but I know that, like, in college I did.
Yeah.
Highlight the thing and mark it up and just really, like, own it and dog ear all the pages that you thought were really, and that's what this gives you. You can't, you can only bookmark so many things, on the community site, and this gives you a sort of a tangible source to quick check and reference. And God, Beth always wants to know about swag.
Listen, it's because we've held so much swag from them for so long. It's time to give it up. I understand completely.
She's not far off.
No, she's absolutely not. And we can't wait. We've got so many other things to talk about, and we can't wait. There are actually some big things coming. A lot of yours ways out there through the swag department, as well as some of the things that we're doing with some of our advocacy stuff. So we're super excited about that just internally. More questions coming in, which I love. Kat is just Johnny on the spot. How can school and district edtech leaders utilize this book with their staff? Well, we're glad you asked.
Yes, I saw that and I was like, ooh, like that. Yes. But, again, Eddie and I tend to be like the big idea, and then we'll figure out how to make that happen later, So, in my mind, in Eddie's mind, we definitely feel like, this type of resource is a great enhancement to implementing, Canvas in a building. She's like, somebody else put the kids to bed. I'm busy. But to Kat's point, I can envision, this being part of school libraries, the teacher library, for teachers to go in and have a resource to quick check. If I'm dreaming, big dreams, then I would feel like if your district is implementing Canvas, then you as a district leader, you should be interested in, buying copies of the book and having them available for your teachers, all of them, some of them, one per department. It seems to me to make a lot of sense as an additional resource that way. We already see people using it that way, or planning to use it as part of like new teacher orientation, and obviously just in those early stages of implementing and expanding the use.
At one time, Marcus and I had this idea. Again, we are definitely always saying yes and always thinking of new ways. At one time, we thought maybe there would be a Canvas.net Canvas LMS for Dummies course. I don't necessarily know if that would be a thing that people would be interested in, but it's definitely crossed our minds on what that might look like. So we're interested in what, like implementation book study cohorts, like great idea for new teacher orientation. That's why we do this. We're not here to talk about the book. We just want you guys to collaborate with each other on this chat. Because again, no educator ever gets a bad idea from talking to other educators. Like I've always been, I've always, felt that way and felt that was always something that was always needed. Let's get everybody in the room and just chat about it, because I think we'll come up with some pretty good ideas. We are probably getting close to time, so if you have questions, and we've got one. Look at that. I didn't even have to go into
Carrie's bringing the heat.
Coming in hot. Finish this sentence. Our book is a great companion book to the Canvas community.
Yahtzee.
Silos are for grain, not education. Love
Absolutely. That. Yeah. And, if you just look at the folks, and I know that there's plenty of folks that have, checked in, tuned in, or as we say, sort of lurking. But if you look at the names here, we're talking about some serious heavy hitters in education. Now, I was going to say ed tech, but let's keep it real. And so, when you talk about Greg, saying silos are for grain, not education, that's a huge part of what we hope this can do, is because, and this goes back to what Eddie was talking about with Kona. Kona being our tech editor, she's from higher ed. And so she was able to help us get out of our K-12 silo a lot of times throughout the course of the editing. And she would say, hold the phone, boys. That's not how this works in higher ed. And so I was really appreciative of that in the editing process, getting her feedback and her helping us to sort of make sure, again, that we were speaking, a language and talking to the largest audience possible. And we didn't want higher ed folks to feel like they were being sort of shortchanged from the content. And we didn't want to, have anyone lacking. And so, that sort of speaks to, breaking down the silos is, this is an amazingly powerful platform for learning, period. And so Kona did an amazing job of helping us make sure that we were confronting all facets and all levels of learning.
Yeah, and just as we decided to kind of wrap things up, more questions are coming in. We did discuss this earlier from anonymous Facebook user. Whose idea was it to write the book? And actually, the guy that's joined us in the chat very recently, Stephen was the guy from Wiley Publishing, Stephen Hayes, who approached Marcus and I and said, my kids are using Canvas. A lot of educators are using Canvas. What in the world is this thing? And I think we need a Dummies book for it. And I'm the guy that can make that happen. Would you guys be interested? So really was his idea. Marcus, we share this a lot in the podcast. So very interesting. Be real. What's your favorite gem feature in Canvas for K-12 users? I know I've always been a huge fan of Studio. We talk a lot about that on the podcast. And in fact, if you're interested in a lot of these gems, we do something called What's in Your Canvas Backpack on the podcast. We ask all of our users to give us a favorite gem of their feature, whether they're in K-12 or higher ed. This book is not K-12 focused, as Marcus said. It really spans the gauntlet of all the educational industry. So we are super thrilled to kind of share those with you and check out the podcast. Marcus, one gem. Go for it. Throw it out there.
And I guess I'm guilty of, what they call recency bias. But Eddie and I actually just did a webinar here in the state of Indiana. And we got a chance to talk a little bit about, we were focusing on the rich content editor. And we just, it was a 30-minute session for some educators here. And the more we prepped for that and planned for it and worked through revisiting our chapter on the rich content editor, and then thinking about how we were going to take all of that great content and condense it down into 30 minutes, which actually was probably more like 20. We realized that there's so much power in the media elements within Canvas and wherever those lie. And sort of course, Eddie's talking about studio, media recorder, through rich content editor, and all of the ways and places that can come to a teacher to use and for students to use. And so to me, it always goes back to that, because I've always said, if I have to type more than 2 steps of a process, I'm no longer typing it, I'm speaking it. You know, and that's me as a coach to teachers, and that's me as a teacher to my students. I want to trim the fat of the text-based instructions, and I want to speak to my learners. I want them to see my face, whether they like it or not. I want them to hear my voice. I want them to hear the inflection. I want them to see me, make facial expressions when I think I'm making a joke and it comes off as a dad joke. I want them to see and interpret all of that, rather than 17 steps of a list of instructions. And as we talked about that last week, that's something that sticks out to me, is leveraging the media along with text, so that you're really providing a full and thorough, clear and concise lesson or assignment or task for whomever you're teaching.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to finish with this question. It's something that actually just hit my inbox, and Marcus is not prepped for this whatsoever, because it just came in. But this is something that actually was brought up to me as I was at FETC this past weekend with some of these educators that have joined us tonight, and they're absolutely fantastic. I was thrilled to be able to see you in person. Marcus was a little sad. He'll be able to be with us on the next event for sure. We're already in the works on that. But Marcus, as we now have a book, and folks may want a copy of this book, and they may see us in person, and they might ask us to sign our names to this book, which is the weirdest thing in the world. I feel like it's a middle school yearbook. But if you want me to put my name in it, sure. The question is, what will accompany your name when you are signing the book? Like, what's a go-to quote? What's something that you're going to put alongside your name that will live in infamy for the rest of time? This is where we're finishing.
Whoever asked that has clearly cracked into my skull and has read my mind, because I've been, as sad as it is, I have been pondering that. My go-to thing when people have said, I want you to sign the book or whatever. Eddie and I can't handle compliments. We're not able. So my go-to is always, well, that's going to significantly damage the value of the book. If we write in it, you're not going to be able to sell that back at the local university bookstore. You're not going to get your money back. But in truth, I find myself saying, I do have, and I think Eddie does too, we do have some kind of catchphrases that we sort of lean on. And I don't know if I've settled on one. I don't want to share it out yet, maybe, but keep it secret. But I will say that I've thought about it, and I realize that that's a thing. And I think I've got it down to maybe 2. So
I will absolutely share mine. Now, most of the time, this will be a very personal message to the folks that we see and talk to. But there is something that I would like to probably finish a lot of those messages with, a call sign, so to speak. And it's something that was said to me when I was the CT Innovation Coach at Central 9 by a guy that I absolutely 100% viewed as a mentor, not only in education but in life. And just finding the ways that he was building relationships with students, and I spent a lot of time with him outside of the classroom, and just really got to know him as a person. And he always said the same thing to me. It was like his catchphrase. So I'm kind of stealing it, but I almost want to do like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take dash Wayne Gretzky dash Eddie Small. Like, I want to give him credit, but also like not use it as my own, but know that came from somebody else. So I'm putting it on the record officially to all of those out there. But he always said this thing to me, whether I was done with a project or I was working on a project, before he would leave, he'd say the same thing. And he said, Eddie, if you can't make an impression, make a dent. And that's all I've been trying to do since he has said that to me from the first day of creating projects, which is I'm not here to leave impressions. I'm just trying to leave a big enough dent that we can make an impact in this world, whether it's sharing our stories through Canvas, sharing this experience and education that we're all going through, whether it's the crazy time through the pandemic. So that's what I'm gonna sign. I'm gonna sign, if you can't make an impression, make a dent, -Frank Warman, -Eddie Small. It is on the record officially for everyone out there to know that like, you didn't say that, Eddie. That didn't come from you.
Right.
That came from somebody else. So we'll get the record straight right off the bat. But it has been the most impactful thing, I think, that I will remember for a long time in my career and throughout my life. Marcus, we have been on here for an hour. When we started, I said, let's do 20 minutes. And then if folks are on and we'll do maybe 25, maybe we'll do 45. And we've been here an hour. So it's time to let all of you enjoy your life. Kat's got 2 kids that may or may not be screaming in a bathtub at some point.
The water's freezing, Mom.
Let's go be parents again, and educators, hopefully for the rest of our lives. But we appreciate all of you so much for jumping on and being a part of this. Any parting words, Marcus, before we go?
I don't have anything profound. Honestly, I'm kind of in an afterglow of your story. Like, I really got to up my game now. Like, competitive. Now I'm like, man, I got kind of a little thing from that, Eddie.
Oh.
Good for you.
It wasn't me.
So,
it wasn't me.
I know, but it's that kind of thing where educators, we speak the language to each other, and it hits different amongst us. So we appreciate everything that you guys have done to help us along the way, and being guests on our podcast, and being wonderful human beings and amazing educators, and just always pushing the needle to make sure that we as educators are doing just the absolute best for kids and for really learners of all ages. So we just feel really lucky to have everybody tune in and be so supportive. And I can't wait to get after it. Let's get to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited. And that's it. That is the first ever live video video vlog. What are we calling this? A live stream. The live stream Q&A for not only the Canvas for Dummies, but the Canvascasters. We're so happy that you have joined us. Thank you so much. We can't wait to continue to collaborate. I love this comment, Marcus, which will get us to maybe a little bit of, we're up to something. There was a comment that came in that said, these should be regular sessions. You should always do this. And I'm not going to lie to you. This might be something we do very regularly in the future. So
I'm going to need to get some work done, I think. If I'm keeping it 100, as the kids say, if I'm keeping it 100, might need some Botox, I need some.
Oh, yeah. The Peloton's going to see a lot of me if we have to start going on to video. All right, guys. Hey, thank you so much. We appreciate you, as always. That's Canvas for Dummies. We're the Canvascasters. We will be live maybe on the next vodcast live stream of the Canvascasters. We'll hope to see you then.